ಹಲೋ.
ಹುಲ್ಲಾಗು ಬೆಟ್ಟದಡಿ ಮನೆಗೆ ಮಲ್ಲಿಗೆಯಾಗು, ಕಲ್ಲಾಗು ಕಷ್ಟಗಳ ಮಳೆಯ ವಿಧಿ ಸುರಿಯೇ, ಬೆಲ್ಲ ಸಕ್ಕರೆಯಾಗು ದೀನ ದುರ್ಬಲರಿಗೆ, ಎಲ್ಲರೊಳಗೊಂದಾಗು ಮಂಕುತಿಮ್ಮ ಎಂಬಂತೆ. Today we are in the session of Jnana Dasova, the 36th session from the Bangalore branch of the SRC of ICAI. You all know this COVID has made us to be in a distance learning. Today we are internationally, the speaker is sitting at Canada and addressing our members. So I will not take much time. On behalf of all the viewers and on behalf of managing committee members of Bangalore branch, I wholeheartedly welcome CA VS Kumar for this session. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Dear members, sir is now exactly sitting at Canada and addressing today. He is taking into the topic fraud risk management. Members, make note that the Bangalore branch has started the webinars way back in March, and with all the limitations, we are conducting the webinars for the in the time of 2 weeks, scheduled time of 4 to 6. Even though many international speakers have addressed to our webinars, they have made a note that they have adjusted to our 4 p.m. time, and today is also sir addressing CA VS Kumar, as a very well experienced personality, is going to address our members. It is a real Jnana Dasova to all the members of the Bangalore branch, because now the number is increased to the 1,000 members can view this program. Only my request to the members, we have to be in full pledged, you have to view the program, then only you can avail the CPE. Otherwise it is difficult to allow it with the CPE. Members, tomorrow we are having again a fantastic session from CA Varun Nirmal, US taxation overview and opportunities for the chartered accountants. So every month, one or the two sessions we are conducting on the basis of opportunities for the CAs. And I request VS Kumar sir, when we are addressing fraud and risk management, just 5 to 10 minutes, you can lastly address to our members what are the opportunities available in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Let's our young members can take benefit how, because last one session, sir, before that we had session on export of services from the CA Sunil Talati as address. So maybe it is connecting that export of service to the now Canada. We came to the Canada. So
Definitely.
once again I welcome all the viewers and VS Kumar sir. I request our Bangalore branch secretary Srinivas sir to formally introduce the today's speaker to all the viewers. Over to Srinivas.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Very good evening, sir, and good morning to you, because you are starting at by 6:30, I think, in Canada.
Yeah, 6:30. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome to the webinar, live webinar.
Thank you.
And I also welcome all the viewers for today's program. It's a very important program, because considering the cybercrime and online frauds is happening, we should know what is the fraud risk management. To handle this session, we have an eminent speaker, none other than VS Kumar sir. Is a very senior member of our institute, having more than 20 years of experience. Presently is an enterprise risk consultant, EFTRAC Canada, INC Canada. Okay, his core specialty is enterprise risk management, bank and corporate fraud. Speaker in forensic domain. He is having a wide experience in banking, namely Canadian government banking regulator, United Arab Emirates government banking regulator, commercial banks of HSBC, Andhra Bank in India, and so many other banks. And is a proud member of our ICAI. And his other interest is logistic and corporate management. The cases handled in forensic audit, fraud risk management is very enormous, saying that multiple bank fraud investigations, anti-money laundering investigations, insurance frauds, gold and bullion risk assessment, risk-based treasury operations, audit and investigations, regulatory risk assessment, regulatory oversight of high-profile money transactions. His contributions are high-powered note on emerging risk in banking sector, author of a risk-based internal audit manual, revenue audit manual, risk-based control in a SWIFT payment system. He is also a speaker in forensic domain. With this brief introduction, I once again welcome you and present before you VS Kumar sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman sir and Secretary sir. Pleasure meeting you all the members. Let me just start the session. 1 second. I'm just looking for my. I think I loaded my PowerPoint. Yeah. Can you see the whole thing?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Welcome all. Good evening, one and all of this August audience, ranging from students, members, and subject matter experts. Thank you all for spending your valuable time in attending to this interesting session on fraud risk management, a global scenario. Yes, fraud is a serious subject, but in reality, it's fun and interesting, both for the investigator and for the fraudster also, like a chess game. I can only make this fraud session interesting by using few case studies, videos. In addition to that, I split the modules into 4 modules stitched nicely for easy understanding too. Just wanted to a brief logistics for this webinar and disclaimer. It's mandatory in our view. During my talk on and off, I'll be touching few basic concepts in order to understand better for the students. Our experienced members and subject matter experts, they are very much aware of the basics. Appreciate if you could bear these basics in the large interest. And disclaimer, case studies, images, videos here are presented for education and better understanding only. We acknowledge sincere thanks to all concerned for your input covered in this presentation. These are not for advertisement. For security reasons, names are changed. Do you like challenges? Then better join fraud examiners, CFE, become a CFE. If you like challenges, this is the profession you should join. Definitely. Let us take a deep dive onto our fraud risk management session right away. It's a 4-module structure. Fraud risk management, it's a monster concept. We are giving it to you as a bite size. Fraud risk management program, concept and accountability, module 1. Module 2, banking fraud. Module 3, digital fraud and online, IoT, Internet of Things. Module 4 is fraud risk management tools, global scenario. Module 1, concept overview, where we cover what is fraud. It's all basics. Again, as I told you, fraud risk, management of fraud risk. Then effective fraud risk management program, industry and company specific, organization size, complexities, recognizing inherent and systemic risks, banking and digital focus. Then comes the crucial accountability. Who is accountable for the fraud risk management and its effectiveness? Do you think statutory auditors are responsible, accountable, internal auditors, or top management, or who else? Basically, it is boardroom to mailroom, and the role of internal auditor. It's a key role of internal auditors. Of course, AML investigation is also part of the study. Coming to basics of fraud, error can be accidental, but there cannot be an accidental fraud. Fraud means it is an intentional. In fact, origin of the term fraud, if you see, financial reward acquired under deception. The deception is not accidental, it is intentional deception made for personal gain, fully, deliberately deceiving another in order to damage them. In criminal law, fraud is a crime or an offense. As you know, internal or external fraud versus external fraud. Internal fraud is basically employee fraud, occupational fraud that runs into corruption, asset misappropriation, financial statement fraud, and not charging the friends or family. These type of things. That is the internally the companies internally it is happening. But external fraud, it is unexpected loss perpetrated by people or persons external to the organization. This can cause financial loss, material loss, or even reputation loss. There is a point of threat and risk. Threat, unintentional threat and intentional threat. A threat is what we are trying to protect against. A staff mistakenly accessing wrong information of a system, then it is unintentional. Whereas a disgruntled or the staff who is not happy accessing the same system to inject a virus or add spyware, it's an intentional threat. Risk is very high in case of intentional threat. Risk. What is risk? The potential for loss of life, of money, or damage as a result of threat is risk. Risk is the intersection of assets, threats, and vulnerabilities. Types of risk ranges from inherent risk, systemic risk, reputation risk, regulatory, employee fraud risk. In fact, fraud is a risk. Fraud risk is the risk of various types of fraud a company could be subjected to. Most important in the current scenario is risk and emerging risk. High risk of uncertainty, emerging risk is high risk of uncertainty. Even basic information, we can't even imagine how we can handle it. No clue. Emerging risk is completely a new beast that had never been seen before, but causes havoc. Ironically, we are right now facing emerging risk, our great corona COVID. In fact, reality of emerging risk, you see what all the items that I was telling you, even basic information, it is uncertainty. You cannot even predict what is going to happen, exactly what is happening. In fact, in this decade, actually, 2011, there was a movie, Contagion, 1 decade ago. I think it's time that we just it's a 1 minute movie, just past 1 minute movie. You can just see the reality. This is exactly the emerging risk. Just I'll try to play it out. Hope it's connecting.
Sir, PPT is close.
So This is emerging risk, basically. Exactly, it satisfies all the ingredients that we were talking about. In fact, this emerging risk in 2011, it was supposed to be emerging risk that we are facing it right now. Similar type of risk, if it happens in banking, in other areas of frauds, then see the lethal weapon of emerging risk. In fact, in Canada, we have, I'm sure in Reserve Bank of India also must be having it, because I used to be working for Canadian banking regulators, even in Middle East banking regulators. We have emerging risk committee. So they normally take all the experienced people, will be giving them how the world will be, or the banking system will be in another 10 years, or what the risk it will be happening. So that is the way we give our notes, executive note we call it. So in fact, it will go through the executives, and finally once it is adopted, then finally it goes to the circulation of the executives. In fact, I also submitted one report like that on the SWIFT, actually. Proud to be there. And then coming to risk assessment, risk heat map covering banking fraud, AML risk heat map. And we do stress testing also in regulators, as a regulator, in order to judge the banking health. It's called proactive real estate market. In the Middle East, we used to do it. And in Canada also, we use multiple tools for risk assessment. Coming to fraud risk identification, in order to identify the fraud risk, one has to assess the incentives, pressures, and opportunities to commit fraud. Most important is the intention. Along with pressure and opportunity, fuel for committing fraud is rationalization. Opportunities to commit fraud exist throughout any organization for that, but it is huge in banking and digital enrollment. Imagine if there is a lax in the internal controls and a lack of segregation of duty, it's a field day for auditors, basically. In fact, I had come across one of the cases I attended. There was a complete lack of segregation of duties in one of the bank's branches, where one of the senior supervisor is a very smart supervisor. In fact, we got a message from the headquarters. There is a unreconciled demand drafts were outstanding for X dollars. And when we went there, and then we started investigating, and we went there not as an investigator, as an internal auditor we went in, so nobody knew that we are coming for investigation. And we were sitting with the manager and then discussing, and normal cash check and demand drafts were checking, and everything was going on. During demand draft checking, there was some discrepancy there itself. And then, in fact, we sat together with the manager and asking for all the records. There was one guy who was so curious, coming in, trying to snoop in what is happening. Sir, why are you sitting here? Why not you come down and then take up other, we are concentrating on certain, it is none of his business what we are doing. That itself give a red flag for us, that there is something happening here. That is the way, basically, as an internal auditor, your eyes and ears should be open completely. It's not that you are doing a job like an accountant. You are not an accountant, you are an auditor. So once you get into the job, immediately just look for something. You can easily, the body language itself will show that you are a shrewd auditor. That is the level we should be projecting ourselves. And finally, when we did the investigation, it was nearly 6 times than what was projected. It was all, the main thing is why the demand draft reconciliation was not happening. Deed is issued without consideration. That is the reason why the fraud has happened. In fact, the same guy only ultimately, he was playing with the funds of customers, literally as if it's all his accounts. And he was issuing demand drafts. If there is an issue, immediately he'll put the money from another account. He'll be transferring from another account. It is a live case. It happened. For your information, when we were in the hotel, there was one guy coming, waiting for us in the reception. Then when we went in and asked him, what is it? Why are you waiting for me? Then he showed some of the recurring deposit books, 7 books, recurring deposit passbooks, showing us, sir, these are all the amounts that I deposited. This guy had signed everything, but today when I went to the bank for a loan, they said there is no money on the account. It was around 1.8 lakhs was the missing amount. And again, same guy was pinpointed because he is a neighbor. Then finally, of course, the law took its own course. The guy was sacked. He was arrested, actually. Disciplinary proceedings, everything was going on. So why I'm telling is segregation of duty. The whole problem is mainly the manager believed this guy completely. And because he's a very shrewd guy, he is handling not only his job, he was in fact filing the returns what the manager is supposed to do. Everything he was doing it, only the manager was signing it. That is the level of control he was giving, complete control. So this guy was doing it for more than 1.5 years. Luckily, it was plugged at least at that stage. So segregation of duties was zero there in that place. That is one of the reasons why the fraud happened. Whereas if an internal auditor, when they go there, they can easily find such type of things. Why this guy is handling? Because they are going to be there for at least for 3 weeks to 4 weeks. They should be not just looking at the books. They should look at people. That is very important. And then coming to fraud, effective fraud risk management, how it can be implemented, how the fraud risk management can be effective. It depends on the product and its nature, depending on the business, what type of business you are in. If you're in a golden bullion business or a diamond business, it's a high value. Similarly, cash business, there are some cases, these are all potential fraud areas. Easily, it is a temptation for any fraudster. And ease of resale, if the products are there, ease of resale is there, then again, and for everything, as I initially told, the intention of the person is very important, even though pressure is there, opportunity is there, rationalization is there, everything is there. But if intention is not there, there is no fraud. So the intention is the key driver for the whole fraud exercise. And what are the factors that you should consider to ensure that we have an effective fraud risk management? Yes, we have it. So you have to understand the conducive factors for the fraudsters. You have to plug all those factors, then automatically your fraud risk management will be effective. Like access control of everything, right from system or cache area, joint custody, access control, easy to care, and accounts and documentation, more important, and oversight of related party deals. And normally time off, during the time off, we say people must be off for 15 days on the leave or anything like that. Now in the present day, people may be on leave, but they will be logging into the account of their account in the banking. So definitely somebody has to monitor. What is the mechanism there? Who is monitoring that? HR should be involved in that. It is not independently silo. We can handle fraud means it's not just one person's job. It's every person's job. Coming to the accountability, we'll be seeing that. And similarly, more compliant, weak board. Most important is the top board of directors. If it is a weak board, definitely there's a strong case for fraud. Similarly, weak audit function, there is a excellent opportunity for the fraud. And attrition rate means who people coming and going. If it is more, that is again a red flag. Pressure, that means guys are not given increment for more than 1 year, 2 years, they are not given. Definitely there will be a dissatisfaction. And some CFO or whoever is having the classified information, and they will be committing fraud in order to meet the market expectation, in order to avoid invoking of bank guarantee on their company. So the owner and the CEO, in fact, CFO and CEO, if their combination is a lethal combination, literally a toxic combination. So we have to be, as an internal auditor, we have to keep our eyes and ears open. What the role of board and then CEO, CFO, everything. You are not just an auditor going there and then just checking the books and coming back. In fact, as I was telling you regarding during the audit, how you have to keep the eyes and ears open. In fact, in one of the banks where it's an international bank, we were doing an audit. I was just doing an audit. I was just checking the cash at 8:30 in the morning. I was just looking at that, and then I was just looking what's happening. One guy was going back and forth within 2 desks. He was going up and down like that, and then he was looking at, and some of the envelopes he was going there. And as soon as I finished the cash, I went to that desk only first, and I was just casually talking to him. How are things, man? Things are good. Then I just asking, what is the portfolio you are looking at? Sir, I'm looking at pins. And who is looking at the cards? Cards, it is there, sir, that person. Where is that person? So he is on leave for 2 days, sir. Then 2 days, how the cards were issued? That's exactly he was doing. He was having the card and pin in his desk. So as soon as the auditor comes, immediately he tries to. Then slowly when we talk, the manager, oh my God, the manager himself didn't know this is happening actually. Similarly, it's a cash counting machine. You know, in abroad and all, I'm used to counting the cash when I used to be in India regularly by manually. Even currency stores we used to count in cash. Now everywhere it's cash counting machines are there. So there in the foreign country, they said the cash counting machine is not there. So you cannot do cash checking. I said, who said cash counting machine is not there? Cash cannot be checked. Give it to me, I'll check it out. Full checking we are doing it actually. Now coming to the crucial accountability. Who do you think is liable? Is the statutory auditor or internal auditor or senior management? Definitely statutory auditor's role in fraud, unfortunately, it is a bit limited because they can get away with generally accepted overall, their qualification reports and everything. And then they're just overview only they are doing completely. And whatever is listed in the books, only they are responsible. Whereas in PNB bank fraud, you know that lot of issues or statutory auditors, because everything was offside the books. The guy was doing everything outside the books. So there the statutory auditor's responsibility slightly, they cannot say I'm not responsible. Definitely they are responsible, accountable, but not to the extent. Whereas internal auditor role is really severe. And senior management, of course, it's not only that. In US, there is a law saying everybody, right from top to bottom, is responsible. If there is anybody who is aware of or doing some fraud, is criminally liable, definitely. So if you are, I'm nothing. I'm just a ordinary guy sitting here. Something is happening. I knew that. That's all. You are booked. So nobody can say that I'm not responsible. From accountability, they wanted to have the completely everyone is accountable from top to bottom. That's why we call it boardroom to mailroom. Everybody is responsible. Fraud risk management, basically, suppose if you want to have a complete protocol and everything. So in this company or this bank, we had it. Can we have the same thing here? There is nothing like that. There is no one size fits for all at all. Customization is very important. In ensuring effectiveness of fraud risk management program, internal auditor plays a very big role in ensuring strict compliance following Association of Certified Fraud Examiner guidelines. Fraud risk management depends on the industry, company, and the severity of the area and the vulnerability. Most important is the vulnerability. So you have to go, all the three areas must be considered. Industry, which industry? Suppose it may be a retail industry. Is it a banking? Is it a gold? Everything is different because risk tolerance is different. Vulnerability is different. So industry is key, under which key, and then the size of the organization. What is the size of the organization? Similarly, vulnerability. Everything has to be considered in when you are drafting a fraud risk program. And key elements to be present in any documentation. Roles and responsibilities of board and senior management, and most important is tone at the top. If the senior management, top management goes a blind, suppose some fraud is happening, it is brought to the notice, they said it's okay, it's not a big deal. That body language itself gives a wrong signal to the staff who is working. And then themselves, they should stand as an example. So that is where the tone at the top comes into the picture. And another important is, in the infrastructure, you should have a fraud awareness among the staff. No company is fraud proof. So that should be the motive. And then everyone must be given fraud awareness training, webinar, everything has to be given to them. And similarly, it should be part of the thing as a conflict disclosure. So if any purchase, suppose somebody is there and the chief of purchases, and already when he joined, suppose the company, the person has joined, he knows that somebody is supplying materials to that company. Conflict disclosure must be made. There is not, I didn't know, they cannot say that. So tomorrow something happens, there is a possibility. So conflict disclosure is very important. And periodical fraud risk assessment has to be done. Then emerging risk, of course, definitely it has got to be part of the game. That is again top management's responsibility. Reporting protocol is very important. And red flags, what are the types of red flags? Again, it depends on the company and the industry. And whistleblower, it is very much practiced here in North America and Europe. I'm not sure about India. Is there anything specific? They are giving an opportunity, and the protection, more important is the protection for the whistleblower. Suppose the many places we know that something is happening, but I don't know, if I tell somebody tomorrow I may be taken to task, my job is at stake. That is the fear. People will not be coming out of it. Whereas in order to stop that, only North America and Europe and all, they have a very clear guidelines. Full protection. In fact, some of the cases, there are some rewards given. And even in our institutes, ACFE, Fraud Examiner Institute, we have got awards and rewards for whistleblowers. And then the investigation process, how an investigation should, it is all should be documented. And most important is the corrective action and the penalty. And any penalty you give, that should be a lesson for everybody. And quality assurance at each stage. And continuous monitoring. As I said, always eyes and ears. And one more thing is history and experience. This is one of the responsibilities of everyone, particularly internal auditors. You guys must definitely read very well. Now the web is at your disposal. What has happened in the industry in other places, same thing, you take it and then do the audit according to that. Definitely experience of others is very important. And of course, history of the company is different. Every incident cannot happen to the same company, whereas in other companies, you are seeing it, then better you protect it. And never a fraud risk management program is static. It should always be dynamic. Every time it has got to be dynamic and keep on changing. World is changing, so as the rules also. This brings to the end of our first session on concepts of fraud risk management and the accountability. To recap, accountability, major accountability is everyone, of which internal auditor plays a very critical role, definitely, because tomorrow some investigation comes. If they find something, they have to submit a special report. and then bring it to the attention of the top management for sure. So internal auditor's role, I again stress it, it is a very important accountability. In addition to all mailroom to boardroom, boardroom to mailroom, top to bottom. This brings the end of the chapter 1 or module 1. Next comes module 2, which is banking fraud. Fraud toes the dotted line of money. Where there is money, there is fraud, basically. Banking is money, nothing else. So naturally, for the fraudsters, that is the fertile ground for fraud. And here, of course, basically anti-money laundering, and there are some international case studies that covers risk assessment, credit area, gold bullion, that type of a frauds, and retail banking. Retail banking, it's only a video on a fighting financial fraud of a Canadian bank. And then most important is in the banking fraud, we should always concentrate on RCA. That means root cause analysis. If a fraud occurs, or if you suspect a fraud, you should not go just by the layer, top layer only. This is what has happened and how I can rectify it. It doesn't stop there. Why it happened? That is very important. Why it happened? So that why comes the root cause analysis, and then only the repetition of that same incident will not happen. Otherwise, today this is just like our audit report. You give an audit report, 11 points, you say these are all the points, then immediately they say yes, rectified. It doesn't stop like that. Immediately file is closed. Whereas 2 points, it will be having some systemic issue. So today it is closed, whereas tomorrow it will reappear. Similarly, a review in the audit department, or if you're a practicing chartered accountant, definitely if you're doing a bank audit, you should review the previous audit reports. If any serious risk points, high risk points and very high risk, if it is repeated, then that is a big red flag you have to go through. And particularly if you are an internal auditor of a company also, newly joined, most important is newly joined, then they have to go through the previous audit reports and then see based on the risk, is the risk-based audit report or is it a simple audit report? Even if it's a risk-based audit report, concentrate on high and very high of the internal audit report or the statutory audit report. Any repeats, those things we have to take it seriously. That's where the root cause analysis comes into picture. Coming to anti-money laundering, this is one of my favorite areas. I have done some investigations in anti-money laundering. In fact, I traced the money until the account where it was credited, for which we got some good appreciation for our team, So this is very important. Money laundering, basically, it's a huge problem all over the world, everywhere, whether it is North America, Europe, Middle East, Asia, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, it is a problem because it covers the tax evaders, drug dealers, terrorist operations, so many areas. In fact, many people, unknown, normal people also doing anti-money laundering business. So that is where the whole issue comes into the picture. And in fact, I'll be covering this more in the tools because there is a risk heat map is there that covers 2 types of risk. Most important is the country risk and then the transaction risk. Under transaction risk, volume and frequency. This whole thing comes under a risk map. That's a bit longer one. I'll be covering it under tools basically. Coming to case studies, it is not the fraud we should be thinking. Potential fraud is also equally very important. As I was telling the root cause analysis, any red flags, oh, there is no fraud happened, that means we are safe. It's not like that. In fact, one of the international case studies, basically, it is a golden bullion division. During the audit, I couldn't understand how the department could be run like that. That is the level of the controls that were going on. And the volume of gold was so much. And the controls I cannot even imagine like that type of a thing. So automatically you give a risk rating was, so far the risk rating was medium, like for that particular division, medium. Whereas during the observation, our team, we came out with a risk rating of very high. Very high is the topmost. As soon as when it touches very high, the exit meeting will be attended basically by the top management only, along with the manager and the zonal manager, regional manager. Everybody will be there when it's going to be a very high risk rating, because we give an indication, yeah, this exit meeting is very important. Then everybody will be coming point wise, will be giving one by one. The manager didn't have any defense whatsoever. It was more than an 8-day audit. So every day we have been warning, and he was ignoring our warnings also, even though he could have rectified and it could have become high also. Just because of the individual's responsibility, it happened. We didn't know that within next 15 days, the division was closed, suspended, operations suspended. That is the level a top management, see the importance. This is where the tone at the top comes. How serious they are taking about the audit report and the risk rating. Because if they take it lightly, okay, very high, okay, reply whatever the auditor is telling. That's all. They could have done like that easily. The banks, such type of banks are top banks, and the international banks are like that, means that is the reason. Immediately, less than not even 15 days, within 10 days or so, because they have to ensure that all the points are really serious. Then immediately the division was suspended. And just like our corona, you do the sanitation checking completely. If anybody is quarantined for 14 days, same thing happened. And complete sanity checking was done. And then new people were posted. Experienced people were posted. And we had a re-audit within less than 2 months. And then they got a report. So the risk rating was revised completely. This is the way it has got to be done. That is the level of executive decision that makes a big difference. Similarly, in another case, there was one more case. It was a international transfer of money. When we were investigating, initially the guy seemed to be the person who is in charge, basically. In fact, they have already identified there is a large money, GBP, that currency was transferred. It's around 240,000 GBP. It's a huge amount. Money is gone already from a senior person, in the society, very wealthy person's account. The person is around 78 years. So from his account, the money was transferred, and they pinpointed the guy who has done it, everything. And we did the investigation, how it was done. Systematically, the money was going. In order not to attract anybody's attention, because there used to be in abroad, I'm not sure about India, now in abroad and all, there are a lot of things, they do it by, particularly in Middle East and all, they used to send a fax, authorization by fax. I'm talking about more than in 90s. So there used to be fax, they used to be sending the fax, and then immediately authorization is taken care. So this guy was doing it on a fake or fictitious fax messages in which that guy's signature was done completely, money was siphoned off. And when we investigated how it was done, and in fact, this guy used to be going abroad every 3 to 4 months, he'll be going. So during that period only, the last month, last trip, and now it was around 3 months. When he came back, he saw his money is down. Then only the whole thing happened. We investigated completely, and then we identified, and then when we did the fax checking and everything, we could easily see that this guy has forged the signature completely, and then he was doing the whole fraud. And you won't believe, when we were doing everything, this is another problem. There should be sentiments, but whereas if you are a fraudster, please put your sentiments completely, lock it. because I experienced it personally. There is one of the executives, he was so soft, so nice person. He was also along with us. Unfortunately, he was our boss also. Then this guy was in the room doing everything. We are doing investigation. After 7 days of investigation, we had our boss with us. This guy was sitting there. We presented all the facts. This is exactly you did. You have to accept it. This is what you did. This is what you did. This guy, instead of accepting or disputing, he simply started crying, saying, "Oh my God, my family is there. This is there. That is there. I'm back in home. This happened, that happened, and all." Myself and my another team member, we just had a stone face, literally. We didn't budget. But unfortunately, boss said, I think, he said, just wait outside. We will discuss and call you back. Then we were discussing. He was trying to convince us this person could not have done this seriously. Sir, this is the facts. We are all having it. No. I think we should give some chance to this person. We'll see what we can do. That is the level of, the tone at the top. Once it is lost, it is lost. You won't believe the guy from outside, he disappeared. Literally, he disappeared. It was shocking. What happened to this guy? That is the level. And finally, of course, there was when the matter was reported to the police and all that stuff. That is a different story altogether. Why I am telling, the sentiments, zero. If you're a fraud examiner going for an investigation, just stick to your role. That is very, very important. That is the way it has got to be done. And there is a break. We can have it like there is one fighting financial fraud in retail banking. It's a Canadian bank. Again, just a 1 minute, 1.5 minutes video only. You can just take a look at it. It's an interesting one. How we are doing in Canadian banks, you can see that one also. Basically, they are talking about as I was telling, no country or no institution is free of fraud. Just because it's Canada, see the way they were talking about it. Yeah, there are cases, $3,000 to $5,000 fraud. It is happening. Online fraud and retail banking fraud, it is happening. So everywhere the fraud is happening. And then the fighting the financial fraud, that is the reason why they're talking about. Okay, coming to anti-money laundering is another area that very interesting area that was done, in which a customer was opening around 22 bank accounts in different names, and then the whole scheme was happening. And another customer, in fact, these two were related. That guy has opened around equal number of accounts, and then the whole issue started off, and then the money laundering was going on for quite some time. And when the investigation was ordered, when we went into the thing, it was like a huge transactions were going on between the accounts that were suspected, around 30-40 accounts between that accounts, and then money transfers going out. Everything was there. When we took the KYC and then saw that one, majority were filled by a single person. Although signatures were different, IDs were forged, everything. Unfortunately, in the bank itself, there was a collision with the whole exercise of account opening and everything. This is one of the areas, that is one of the main things for anti-money laundering. At the plug in the bud, that is exactly happened. So initially, when the account is opened itself, you could have arrested around minimum 60 to 70% of the fraud cases can be stopped at the time of account opening itself. So this is the way the anti-money laundering started off, and then it went on for quite some time. And then the investigation was more than 1.5 months it was going. And finally, we could identify the money that was flowing out of the country and where exactly it's a tax haven it was going in. And during the investigation, It was in the Middle East. During the investigation, there were some fax messages. I mean, we suspected something, and then we wanted to know that whether it is really, whether the staff is involved or not in the whole thing. We wanted to ensure that. At that stage, I was suspected something in the facts. Then we were talking to the CBI at that time. Sorry, not CBI, CID. There it is called CID. Then I was because as a central bank, you can have access to anybody. When we are doing it, the CID, we told that person, I suspect there is a fax coming and going into this person to that person, like that. You won't believe there is a. I mean, of course, in our CBI also it will be there. They said we can trace the fax. It was the news to me. What you are telling? They can trace the fax. Yeah, just wait. We'll put it. Then they plugged something. Exactly, fax was going from one place to another. They were getting a copy. I saw it right in front of me. I got the fax. So my contention that there is a fax conversation. I mean, there is a conversation between the culprit and this guy is going on, definitely, which is not supposed to happen at all. When I had the fax copy with me and then I asked this guy, he said, never we send a fax, sir. Why should we send a fax to that person? We never send it. And it was going from one number to another number. Whose number is this one? Like that, we caught hold of that guy, and then that guy was arrested. So he was part of, because that is where, if there is a person within the organization, if somebody is helping, he is also a fraudster, basically. He is also a fraudster, and immediately he was also booked under law, and then he was arrested completely. So when we recovery proceedings, because we are in central bank, definitely through the police and everything, we got we are alerted the Interpol, everything, and then the money was, the process was going on. Of course, the entire gang, it was around only 3 people only. 3 people plus the only one staff. And you won't believe the CEO of that company, I mean, where the fraud has happened, he was completely unaware of what is happening. That is the pity, literally. At the end of the investigation, when we presented the facts at the exit meeting, at that time, in fact, he said, can you take a lesson for our people? Is it possible? How we should behave? Imagine all the regulations we have been giving, and then we said we are not yet to. Anyway, we can definitely, as a fraud awareness, we can give to everybody. Definitely, this is basically, we may have to do that. And of course, as a central bank, we have to give we cannot say we cannot do it. We did give some basic tips how this which could have been avoided. That is the way it happened, basically, as an anti-money laundering. And then similarly, there was another case of a regulatory review of a large bank. It was a credit regulatory review. Basically, for any bank to, before the financial statements are published, they have to get a regulatory approval that the balance sheet and everything is okay. Because although auditors, statutory auditors must get an approval, so because the inside the regulator's approval should be there, it's a formality is finally they will be signing it. But before that, finalizing it itself, they have to get it, in which our team was there. And it was when we did the credit review, we reversed the ratings because the provisions are based on the ratings of each account. In fact, for the group accounts of 3 group accounts, we revised the rating. We downgraded the rating. So that almost put the bank into loss. That is the level of, and the regulators, as a regulator, we have to be very firm. Yes, this is what it is. Even though the statutory auditor was telling we have got assets there and this corresponding this thing, everything, it was not accepted. This is the way it has got to be done. Then they also they convinced them this is what it is. With the facts, they accepted it also. So regulatory review is very important, in which there was a lot of internal audit mistakes were pointed out by us, where the internal audit structure and the reporting and then the follow-up of the reporting. Although the internal auditor has reported certain areas in the same accounts, It was not followed up properly by the internal audit department. So they were pulled also. Why it was, again, it's called the root cause analysis comes into picture. It is not that, okay, we did a risk review and then this is approved, balance sheet was released. No. Again, a root cause analysis was done. Then finally, internal audit department, full revamp was done, and then they could identify exactly where the whole issue started off. And then it was also plugged actually. Again, the root cause analysis and CATS. CATS is, as you all know, it's computer assisted auditing techniques, and the common responses, accountability again. And in fact, in all the cases, if you see top management response, just like if you see our Punjab National Bank fraud, you will be seeing so many of the summaries, all the four, 5 cases, and our Punjab National Bank also same thing what has happened. We must all read in the papers also. Top management response, how it happened, we didn't know. And statutory auditor off the hook due to off the book scandal. Accountability almost nil. Internal controls, as you all know, just 1 or 2 people were involved, just like our Ashut Mehta's case, just 1 or 2 people were involved. And then top management response, these are all the areas that was covered in the root cause analysis. We have to cover it in that level. Then comes module 3. Module 3 covers digital fraud and online. With convenience comes risk. As payments move online, fraudsters follow very closely. And here, of course, digital frauds means smartphone is important, and Internet of Things, IoT, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing but area of a computer science that emphasizes creation of intelligent machines that work and react like humans. We will be dealing with it more. In simple terms, IoT, what is IoT means? Network of physical devices, home appliances, embedded with electronics, software, sensors, and internet connectivity. It's all web enabled, which enables these to connect, collect, and exchange data. Basically, if you want to ask me, for example, there is a weighing machine. Simple example I tell you, in order for everybody to understand it, there is a weighing machine. As a simple weighing machine, it is nothing connected, nothing. So it is an analog weighing machine. So no threat. And there is another one, digital weighing machine. Again, the display is different. That's all. There is no threat. Whereas you put one chip in that one and you enable it, web enabled, then that becomes IoT. Until the chip, that is called the IoT, Internet of Things, a small one that is put into that one, immediately what all you are doing it, the data is transmitted to wherever it is supposed to go, and it is available. Once it is web enabled, anybody can hack it or anybody can view that. When it is not sensitive, suppose if the weighing machine is taken and then you and I are taking the weight and something is happening, nothing. Whereas a very sensitive top political figure or somebody is weighing machine is done, and something similarly a sleeping machine. Sleeping, there is a machine is there. As the person is having this thing. So health issues. Something is happening to to ordinary people, nothing. Whereas IoT, if it is deployed in a person who is of a high profile person, then that becomes sensitive. It becomes a media news. So there only the Internet of Things comes into the picture. The whole issue comes. Second important is because it is web enabled, the fraudsters can easily hack it and then get the information, make it a big news. Now, just because Internet of Things is there everywhere, like smartphone, internet, IoT, whatever gadget you touch, there is convenience tagged to potential fraud. So similarly with Corona, we are more desperate for convenience. As living with convenience is a necessity going forward, We have to learn how to embrace this risk and lead a lifestyle. IoT is everywhere. Smartphone, appliances, security systems, Fitbit, scale, sleep machines, and even in Tesla car. It is not a digital pandemic we should be worried. We should know how to adapt to that one. So basic things what mitigate the digital risk, AAA, awareness, adaptability, and alertness with common sense, of course. Technology can be like a junk food. We will consume it even when we know it is bad for us. That is the level it has got to be. We have to live with that. Similarly, online fraud. As payments move online, fraudsters cross closely. Global commerce market, e-commerce market is expected to grow to $5 trillion. It is almost like Indian economy, 5 trillion economy we have. In 20% of global sales will be online. Fraud loss is estimated to be 1.8% of online. So fraud dynamics is moving into a new level basically. How do we mitigate it? That is important. Cyber security technology. Cyber security technology against, there are three areas that we have to cover. One is biometrics, mobile authentication, and risk-based authentication. Biometrics, as we all know, user field and user pattern is key. AI application is also a mitigation tool. Fingerprints, pattern matching, facial identification, measurement of points on the face, voice recognition, that's called voice print, and then retina, that is eye recognition. Behavioral biometrics using subtle factors like typing style, swipes on a mobile device, dwell time, and technical identification. These are all the area. Mobile, yeah, that's the same thing. And OTP and analytic is the main solution. Real-time fraud in a real-time world. Oh, this is you're telling you YouTube. I mean, video is not coming up, right? So we'll drop it. And another important area is SWIFT fraud. Previously, it used to be there to be concentrating on individual accounts and corporate accounts. Nowadays, it has become so severe. SWIFT is an international organization. So where the banks to banks, there any transfers to happen, it is happening through SWIFT mainly, but large amounts, and central banks use only SWIFT. In that itself, there was a big fraud happened, particularly not recently, more than 2 years back, started off with Central Bank of Bangladesh, and then it was about $81 million fraud. Then followed by European countries also, banks were subjected to fraud in the SWIFT areas. SWIFT area, we have done some good area of investigations, and then we did some interesting controls that were involved. I mean, we incorporated some controls also. And note on emerging risk was also done. And in fact, under SWIFT, Southeast Asian accounts account for 80% of the fraudulent beneficiaries. That is unfortunately a big red flag. And the currency involved is US dollar was involved in 70% of attempted theft. One thing we can definitely say, when I used to be in India, there are, they call it sleeper cells here in a different context. In fact, I have come across one particular instance when I was working in Bombay at that time. There was a chief of police was addressing a lecture to all because we were in a big bank and then big head office, main office in Mumbai. So we were also part of the team. They were explaining how they uncovered a fraud. Why I am telling this? It is like a sleeper fraud. The way the chief was explaining, there is a team going around the banks. Why I am telling, when you are doing internal audit of banks, you have to keep an eye and ears of the bank, not only the banks, everything you have to keep an eye and ear. There were some 3-4 members. Every day they go and sit in the corridor of the bank. That's all their job. Simply noting down what time this guy comes, what time this guy goes out, and what is the weakness of this person. Completely they study minimum 2-3 hours. This is exactly the police chief was telling. And finally, after gathering all the information, they just scout, is this the place that where we can lay our hand or not? That is the level. That is the reason why these people are all studying. After careful study, they hit nearly 6 branches, and then huge fraud was brought out, and the entire thing was done by this 3 to 4 member team only. In fact, I can call them as sleeper cells more than anybody else. So the whole issue is we have to be careful in observing everything. Observing is the most important thing of an internal auditor, or if you are a branch manager also. As an auditor, if you're a practicing chartered accountant, if your guys are going there, you may have to observe everything right from the beginning. This is one of the very important areas. Sleeper cells, they call it. Here they are calling it as attackers continue to operate silently for weeks or months after penetrating the target, learning behaviors and patterns before launching an attack. Same thing happened. This happened, I'm talking about 1980s level. And whereas here now they're talking in the current SWIFT fraud also, same thing is happening. Even though the country is different, and one is happening in India, one is happening abroad, but the pattern remains same. That is the key point. We have to be very careful. So the pattern of the fraudsters remains same. If we are alert, then we will be able to stop the pattern. That is important. Then most important is basic accounts that is not being operated. It's a dormant, we are transferring, we are doing everything. So similarly, soft target of unused payment corridors. The vast majority of fraudulent transactions used payment corridors, combination of target and beneficiary banks that had not been used during the past 24 to 36 months. So in real time, advanced analytics, AI, artificial intelligence can solve this one. And then insider collusion. This was identified. In fact, in a couple of instances, we also identified there is an insider collusion. And insider collusion, it is not fraud basically, but whereas compromise of controls. This guy used to be giving the password to the other person. The supervisor will be giving the password to the other person because he has got some work, and there the fraud occurs. Even though the supervisor is really good, genuine, and is very soft person, that is where the fraud occurs. Too soft a person, that is the fraud occurs there itself. So similarly, there was another case where there was a spurious gold was involved. In that case also, it's a joint custodian. The main guy, the sub-manager, was a fairly elderly person, whereas the joint custodian, other person, is a youngster. The golden bullion, gold thing was in the basement, basically. The chest was in the basement. So every time the person has to go down, put the gold, bring it back. So whereas the supervisor couldn't go down every time, he gave the keys to the other person. This is the mistake they did. Although in the register, joint custodian. Everything is joint custodian. So that is why we call it feel like joint custody. It is not in reality. Then the matter came up, and then the customers complained that there is a spurious gold. I mean, this gold is not real. Then investigation was ordered. Huge amount was found out. The reason, finally, this guy, poor guy, who is about to retire in 2 years, he was also put into trouble. No choice. And he accepted, yes, I used to give the keys. In record, yes, as per record, I am the custodian. I sealed the thing, everything. He used to bring it up, I signed everything. So this is how it happened, basically. So again, it is not joint custody, it should be real, not on record only. That is very important, which we should always look at it. Now coming to 21st century fraud landscape. We are in a digital school. Previously, we used to be talking prevention. Now it is prediction. Predict the fraud. That is where the technology has moved in now, currently. Of course, prevention should always be there. Definitely, old is always gold. But at the same time, we have to live with the time. So we can predict that fraud. There are technologies that is coming. In fact, real time itself, fraud can be detected, and then we can even predict the fraud now. And coming to earlier, I was telling you about the AML. I'll come to the tools area. Risk chart. It is a heat map basically. There are a couple of things. One is about the transaction rating and the country rating. Here, just like our ABC audit, basically, ABC inventory. Auditors know about ABC inventory. Similarly, more than 10, see the diagram actually, yellow, red, and green and light green. So 10% of threshold end and 2 transactions in 24 hours like that, you may not be able to see. I'm not sure. Second one. Yeah, the clean green, no issue accounts. Country risk rating is low. Transaction rating is also low. Country risk means there are some countries classified high risk countries. And then transaction risk, for example, in this particular case, you can even take Canada and US. Country risks are really good, and transaction risk also rating is low, completely green, that type of thing. Whereas slightly more, country risk rating is low, whereas the transaction risk rating is high. So there it comes under the watch list. Then country risk rating is high, transaction is low, that comes yellow. Whereas both are high, then immediate action. This is where the heat map works. This is the way the heat map works. Every time anything is taken, we should not take it as a silo. Silo means doing it alone. It should be a combo. You should do it as a combo. Transaction and country risk, both together. What is the threshold? This is the threshold we have to do it. And one more thing is risk. There is a tolerance. Risk tolerance is one of the concepts because cost of conducting some things is very high. So risk tolerance, management will accept it. Whereas fraud, there is no tolerance, zero tolerance. Everybody must understand that fraud tolerance is zero, whereas risk tolerant, you can quantify risk tolerance basically. This is the overview of everything together. Watch list accounts, immediate action, red and no issues, and another watch list accounts. Each account is plotted on the risk heat map based on country risk. So once you do because there are group level accounts and then account wise. So you have to do both group level and account level. Everything has to be plotted out, particularly high value accounts. Here, anything you do in the anti-money laundering area, mostly high value accounts only. There's no, because again, going back to ABC audit case only, whereas you will have some 70% of the accounts, you will be having only 10 to 20% of the value. So whereas very low percentage of accounts or the groups that will control around 70% of the bank account, the branch or bank, wherever the institution is. So our concentration should be more on those type of accounts, the level A of the inventory, like that type of a thing we should do it. And then once you put the map, once you start applying it in the heat map, then you will get it where we stand. Depending on that group comes under watch list, this group comes here, like that you have to do everything. So each group has to be managed. This is the way exactly we did it for our anti-money laundering also. Our anti-money laundering case, same thing we did it, and it was very successful actually. And one more tools is data mining. Data mining, basically we can say you have to torture the data, literally, until it confesses. So data mining has to be done. Severe data mining, it is a process and it is a valuable tool, and it collects volumes of data with the objective of finding hidden patterns and analyzing the relationship between numerous data of developing predictive models process by which the model is created to try to best predict the probability of an outcome. Now, this previously it used to be very difficult. Now there are a lot of technologies that had come in where the prediction is possible and data analytics is taken a huge step forward. Now, currently AI, machine learning, everything has come into picture where you can easily predict how the fraud is going to happen and detection, everything we can do it, particularly the volume of transactions. Physically, it is impossible at the current scenario. Physically, it is impossible to analyze all the data. So that is the reason why the latest technologies have come in now. Similarly, computer-assisted auditing techniques. It is like a SAP area for the banking purposes. CATS, computer-assisted auditing techniques, it's also a very powerful for risk-based audits. In fact, when I used to do internal audit, we used to run a CATS program. In Hong Kong Bank and all, we used to have a CATS program. So auditor has to, it is not that we just go into the audit, this is the place we have to do the audit from this date to this date. That doesn't mean we'll be going to the branch straight. In fact, our first stop is IT department. We go to IT department as soon as we get the program, because it is a confidential program. Only we will be meeting the IT chief and then we'll be just giving it to them. Then we give them a threshold. We do a study before going to the audit. We do the previous audit reports we see, and then areas where we have to concentrate. Everything we do. This is, I'm talking about internal audit. Only internal audit I'm talking about. And then we give the thresholds to the IT department. Please run a report through CATS. Then they run a report and come out. These are all the completely, it will give you everything. These are all the accounts that we have to concentrate. These are all the group accounts we have to concentrate. Everything is inbuilt in the system. So it all takes just 3 hours time for us. 9 o'clock when they open, they give it. By lunchtime, we'll be having everything ready. And then depending on that, we do the audit plan. We go to our boss and then say, this is what the, so this is going to be a slightly difficult area. We are getting into that. So current resources of 2 may not be sufficient. We need minimum 3 for this. And timeline also, you have given us 7 days, 7 business days. Total, you give 14 man days you give. Now we need 3 people and we need minimum 10 days. So total 30 days we need. So we have to justify our business case and then we get the whole thing. So for that, the CATS is an excellent program, which is computer assisting audited techniques is an amazing program. It is almost like in SAP, if you see the banking in SAP, it is the same thing only. It is built on that type of a thing only. So that is amazing. We have to definitely use it. If it is not being used, you have to start using it definitely. And it will be, because considering the internal auditors accountability, so this is very important. We cannot say, I don't know, I was not asked to do it, so I didn't do it. You cannot escape liability anymore. So far, it could have been done. Now it is impossible. So tomorrow, some issue happens after 3-4 years. Who was the internal auditor at that time? Immediately, name will be coming out. Then how did you do this? This is what I did. Did you go through this thing? Did you check the risk assessment? Did you do it? Yeah, previously 3 years this item was highlighted, and 4th year happened. This has happened recently. Easily you could have done it. Now you remember our Satyam case. How many auditors were caught? Everyone was caught. Most of the auditors were caught because of that. So when we do a job better, we have to save our skin and the skin of everybody. So definitely extra precaution is highly important. And coming to the interesting one, artificial intelligence and machine learning. If you see artificial intelligence, basically, simple terms, we have to see to create a technology that allows computers to function in a more intelligent manner, simulating or creating intelligence, trying to replace humans. They're not replacing humans, trying to replace humans. And it is more useful in repetitive jobs and basic problem solving tasks, and where predictability is involved. This is where I said artificial intelligence, now prediction is possible now easily using artificial intelligence. Similarly, machine learning. Machine learning is a form of artificial intelligence that enables a system to learn from data. What are the types of machine learning? Supervised learning, teaching AI with a supervision, and learn from surroundings. Nobody is teaching you, and it is just like a newborn baby just looking around, and then they just do it. Just learn from the surroundings type of a thing. And unsupervised learning. Similarly, AI and machine learning application is on where it is applied as it is today, where it is applied. Mobile, we can deposit checks in mobile. Definitely it is, everybody does it actually now. So here both AI and MI, machine learning, are deployed. You are not visiting the branch actually. Similarly, in the email, in our Gmail, there is a classification where you will be seeing. Promotional emails will go in one. These are all done not by Google or anybody. It is all done by machine learning. It is installed there. So the job is made easy. So this is even on a day-to-day, we are able to see certain things which is already in place, and we are using it already. Similarly, artificial intelligence is everywhere, whether it is a Siri in our mobile, Alexa, Tesla car. Tesla is a completely without automated car. In fact, I had an opportunity to drive, go in a Tesla car. Basically, it's a high-end car actually in California. Literally, first right from the start, it was an experience basically, because I was thinking that the front there should be an engine, and my friend was opening the front, and then he was putting some stuff there. I said, what is it? So there's no engine. Oh, there's no engine. That type of front was the trunk basically, and then all these things that they closed and everything. And as soon as we sat in, he said, in next 60 seconds we will be hitting 100 kilometers. Just be ready. That's all he said. The car was going literally like a beautiful, like a bullet. It was going like a plane. It was going. And this guy, normally cruise is there here, where you remove your legs and all these things. The cruise will be there. Just staring is enough. This guy removed his hands also. Oh my God! You should see. And the car was going in 120 kilometers, or huge. It's about 80 miles speed. It was going. Literally, you are sitting like that whole thing. Now I understand when I read it fully about Tesla functioning. Completely, IoT is involved in that. Artificial intelligence is involved in that. Machine learning is involved in that. All three are together in the Tesla car. Similarly, artificial intelligence is available in our regular commercial flights where we see autopilot mode. They just put the pilot will not be doing anything. Similarly, as I told you in the car, same way the pilots are also doing it. So that autopilot, artificial intelligence is there. Google, artificial intelligence power predictions. And even in our regular Uber, rideshare apps also use the artificial intelligence to find the best and the fastest route, for which again artificial rate is used actually. And also the spam filter that you see in your inbox is also powered by artificial. And credit decisions in analyzing an applications, when it is a volume, definitely you cannot be doing it manually. Where you cannot do it manually, there again it is being used, that is artificial intelligence is being used there. And how, okay, it is all Tesla is nice, man. What about our fraud? Where the artificial intelligence is used in the fraud, where the machine learning is used in the fraud. That is important for us for this session. Future of artificial intelligence based, artificial intelligence based fraud prevention relies on the combination of supervised and unsupervised machine learning. We already saw supervised and unsupervised machine learning. Supervised machine learning excels at examining events, factors, trends from the past, historical data. Trained supervised machine learning module to find the patterns not discernible with rules or predictive analytics. So definitely history is important. That area is taken care by supervised one. Whereas unsupervised machine learning is adept at finding anomalies, is exceptions, an interrelationship between each transaction, and valid links between the emerging factors and variables. This is where the prediction comes into picture. Combining both unsupervised and supervised machine learning defines the future of AI-based fraud prevention, and it is the foundation of the top of the 9 ways of artificial intelligence prevention of fraud. There are so many areas they are given. That's all too many things. So I just got the very, very important areas only I touched actually. Otherwise, it's taking a lot of time. So artificial intelligence and machine learning in future, as in our original slide I was giving, future is prediction more than prevention. Of course, prevention will be there. And considering the volume that we are talking about, definitely artificial and machine learning in fraud radar, it is huge. And just how this is being done, it is given in a simple forms like a trends and patterns. What we have learned that it is further broken down actually, trends and patterns. Ultimately, if you see any transaction, if you take it a totality approach, the trend and the pattern is the key basically. Then the prediction is also made easy. Artificial intelligence is redefining fraud prevention from relying only on past experience to taking into account emerging activities, behaviors, and trends in transaction anomalies. And most important is quick, very fast. If you have a voluminous record, if you and I go and sit, starting with a statistical sampling, we'll be doing it. And in order to do the statistical sampling itself, it will take us so much time. Whereas here, it is near 100%, this is handling it. And in a very fast pace. Artificial intelligence ability to detect fraud attacks in almost, most important is the real time, using advanced artificial intelligence based rating technologies like OmniScore. OmniScore is one of the areas that is the future of management. In fact, many of in Europe and North America and all the credit rating agencies use this only. Basically, OmniScore is the one area they are definitely using it, and I'm sure it will be prevalent in India as well. And most important is in any fraud examination, reactive has no value. In fact, for the fraud risk management, one of the key things is proactive. The top management has to do it, in which the emerging risk also comes into picture because risk is not there. This is called the proactive approach. And next, for example, I'll just tell you one small incident. You know, in Samsung, we know very well because here in Canada, these guys came here because I was associated with one of the electronics company here. At that time, the Samsung executive was here, and then I thought they're coming for a deal or something. You know, they came here to sign up with one top person in a wireless area. I said, Samsung is coming here to sign up. Yes, they are doing in next 15 years how the Samsung is going to be. This is where the proactive approach, why they are top in the market. In next 15 years, how the market is going to be. In this particular space, they are taking each areas, especially electronics and wireless, everything they are taking into account. And then, you know, 15 years, I'm talking about 10 years back, now all the things that what we have seen at that time, now it is definitely there in the appliances as a smart IoT. It is all available right now in the fridge, washing machine, everywhere. Why I am telling, the proactive approach of the top management is very important, not only for the business, even for the fraud risk management. Definitely proactive management is highly important. By having artificial intelligence-based fraud prevention system do the work of evaluating historical data and anomalies, customer experience can stay more positive and more sophisticated nuanced abuse attacks can be stopped. Minimizing fraud loss, that means provides fraud analysts with a real-time risk score and greater insight into where best to set the threshold scores to maximize sales and to minimize fraud losses. And aids in compliance. Compliance is a very important area. Regulatory compliance, internal, external compliance. Both internal auditors and statutory auditors, both must concentrate heavily. Now with so many compliances in our list now in 2020, in this for the past 2-3 years, everybody knows, right from the company law, right from GST, everywhere compliance. So internal compliance and external compliance with the volume data, artificial intelligence comes into our action. And definitely it will be very, very useful. Internal business policies regarding the sales of specific product to specific countries based on to distribution and reseller agreements, everything. In addition, for Indian scenario, we can take all the types of compliances we can take also. And neural networks, using the neural networks, analyzing the frequency, type of transaction, size, and the type of retailer involved, and then the throws of exceptions and the red flags will be thrown out. And then similarly, artificial intelligence is very useful in the fraud prevention. Analytics, tools, and innovation in the global trend, fraud and investigation never ends. Today, Kumar is talking. Next, another person will be coming. Life is learning. Definitely, fraud will continue. Investigation will continue. Never ends. We will never end of this show also. Definitely. Summary, if you see, it's a very critical for all of us. Basically, practical takeaways for you. Remember, where there is money or financial gain, there is going to be fraud. You being a professional is part of the game. Whether you like it or not, you are part of the game. You can play any role. You can be a student, because as a student, you are going as an apprentice to an organization to do an internal audit. Definitely, you are an auditor. Don't think that you are a student, so I don't know. You cannot go to that level because you are signing something that your supervisor is signing off and the partner is signing based on that. So your responsibility is very high. Just because of a student, you cannot escape. So be a student practicing CA, or you are an employed CA as a internal auditor head, or as an internal auditor, or as a financial controller, or a subject matter expert as a practicing, or a board member, executive, administrator, take it any level. Accountability is there for fraud risk management. Definitely. Individual accountability. It is you. Tap your forensic brain. As I said, be skeptical and be alert. Keep your eyes and ears open. Report in any form to save your skin and to save your entity and your loved ones. Exercise extreme caution in reporting. Even the classification of reporting is important. If you classify it wrongly, and that means you are definitely under the carpet, it will go. If you do not classify it properly, definitely classification. In fact, during the audits, we definitely a couple of things we used to. This is a good opportunity for you to know how things are happening in international banks. We used to have peer audit in Hong Kong Bank. We used to have peer audit. That means I was doing an audit of a particular branch. When I was doing an audit, there was, along with my general manager, there was another person coming in. I can obviously see that it is a British guy coming in, and then he was just walking in, and then they went to the manager's room. I was in the cash area. I was finishing that one. They were having chat and everything. And then I was told that they are doing and after I finished everything, initially I didn't took that much attention at all. I finished everything. My reporting was done. After around 1.5 hours, I did my security checks. All the securities were verified, cash was verified, and credit card, and then pins were verified. And then I coming back. Till that time, they were sitting there in the manager's cabin. Then they were talking to the people how Kumar did this audit. Every area, did he do a sampling check? What is the sampling he did? Independently, they were verifying. This is part of HSBC's headquarters policy. Every auditor goes through the subject to the peer audit review. So this is very important that these type of things, if it is there, it is well and good. Definitely it is acceptable. But if it is not there, we should definitely incorporate it. And one more instance I can share it with you. In one particular case, as I was telling about the credit card and the debit cards one side, and then the pin handled by another area. I was doing an audit. It was a simple thing. You know, the register where the pins are given, signature is done by the customer. When I was just casually touching the sheet, suddenly I felt something soft. One particular area, something soft. The signatures were clean, and I could feel something. Then immediately, I just put more attention into that. This is where people have to be very careful. Then I saw that one. Then more, I looked into that. There were 3-4 areas that type of a, transparent tape was put there. They removed a customer signature, put it there, and then pasted this one very, very nicely. Very thin one was pasted. That became a, once that was started investigating it, the branch, which was a low risk branch, it's a small branch, that incident, more than 8 cards were compromised by a single individual. So it became a bigger issue. So for a small thing, that is, this is exactly the internal auditors or audit person's mindset. This is where you need not be a fraud examiner for this. As an auditor itself is, they take the role of fraud examiner. Once you apply your forensic mind, this is where you have to tap your forensic brain there. Most important is be skeptical. You shouldn't be believing everything. And important is, if it is too good to be true, that's a big red flag. You have to be alert. So such type of things, definitely, if you do it in the initial stages of your career or in the middle of the career, definitely that will have in long term, it will be a very good impact. So keeping your eyes and ears open and report it in any form to save your skin and to save your entity and your loved ones. Extreme caution in reporting, classification of reporting, as I was telling you. And in case of, particularly if you find something serious during your audit, don't wait for the end of the audit to report. You can always, definitely, if that practice is not there, you can ask your boss to introduce it. Special report. Special report, you can immediately, if you feel something serious is happening, immediately you can pen down everything in a special report and shoot it out to your boss. They have to bring it to the attention of the senior management. So no need for you to wait for the 1 month audit to complete, and then your audit report will go, and then your important point will be buried into that thing. It is not the thing. So as an auditor, your role is, it is not just reporting. That is why I said, exercise caution in reporting. That 4 words makes a big difference. Your reporting makes a big difference. How you report. Special report, immediately it will go to the higher ups, and that will unreveal a fraud, basically. That is where you are not a fraud examiner, you are an auditor, but you are aiding to get the fraud out in the system. That is important. So now it is the time to predict fraud using evolving technology while keeping the basics of prevention intact. Fraud, definitely it is an interesting subject as an investigator. not as a fraudster. Definitely no. So if you really like challenges, definitely certified fraud examiner is definitely is your area. And my friend used to say, certified fraud examiner. You know, he said, I saw only 2 letters, man. I didn't see the last letter. He would say, certified fraudster. He used to tell me, no, I'm a CFE, man. That's the way it is. So that is the level. Hope you all enjoyed the session. So this is the end, coming to the end of it. And I'm ready to take the questions. And initially, our secretary was telling to spend few minutes to explain about the opportunities in Canada and all. Yes, sir. I'm done.
Yes, sir. Few questions are there. Just
yeah, please.
I'm not. It is in question box. Is it
No, I don't see it. 1 minute. Huh? Where is it? Question box. Can you read out the question? That would be better, I think. I don't see it here.
I'm trying.
Chat, you have to see. Question box means?
In question answer, it is there.
No. Which box would it be there? I can see pause, share, assign, mute video, participants.
More options and Q&A.
Sir, in more options.
In chat, huh?
More options.
Oh, more options. Okay, in more options. Yeah, I'm in the more options. Yeah. Q&A. Okay, yeah. I can see. Select a question. But why is it not?
I am also not.
No, it's not there. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. Shankar Venkataswamy.
Can you elaborate on risk rating techniques?
Yeah, risk rating techniques. Yeah, risk rating techniques. Simple. There is a 5 levels of risk. We should do the risk rating. In fact, risk-based internal audit, there should be, in fact, color coded. In fact, we used to have a color coding, like a low risk, and then low medium, and then high medium, and then high risk, then very high risk. So green is going to be low risk. Low medium is green and amber. And high medium is red and amber. Then high is red. Very high is dark red, like a literally red. So risk rating, this is the first thing is, in fact, I used to do the risk-based internal audit manual. When we prepared it itself, we used to have it. So when you start doing to the branch audit or any company audit, when you're doing it, every finding should be basically risk graded, like a finding, risk, and recommendation. That should be your report format. Then you will be understanding, instead of taking a totality view, if you do like that, definitely at the end of the audit, because each department people will be doing it, your team is doing it, one is doing a purchase, another person is doing sales, accounts payable, and you cannot suddenly say, is this company medium risk or high risk? So best thing is risk-based internal audit or risk-based audit. Every person of the team, every point that they are doing, they have to come out with a risk rating of the 5 areas. If they say that this is not a big risk, basically I have verified fully all the samples, nothing, only 1% of the stuff is there, another one is very low, they can put it low and green. Like that, if you start plotting it, once you start plotting it, you will get the totality view. That is where the risk based. So if it is a high risk, then automatically you'll come into picture. As I told you, if any of your team member comes out with high and very high risk, The team leader has to be alert. He should not be looking at so many things. He should focus on those two areas that the person is bringing it to him. And then, as I said, special reporting has to be done. So that is the plus point of having a risk-based audit. I hope the person who is asking the question I'm able to answer. Otherwise, offline, they can definitely write to me. My email is there already if you want more clarification. Yes, sir. Next, sir.
Could you please explain more on the opportunities for certified fraud examination for CAs in practice?
Yeah, in fact, CAs in practice, there are two things. One is, you mean in Canada, you are telling about Canada or general?
I think you can elaborate, sir.
In Canada, if you first let me come to Canada, if you Canada practicing chartered accountants or CAs in India, when they come here, because I'm here for the past 20 years actually. So once you come here, you have to qualify chartered accountancy here, definitely. So in that, there are a lot of exemptions because the country to country, there is an agreement is there. So it's not the particularly once you finish the CA there and then you're coming here, you may not be doing that 3-year articleship type of a thing. Here also it is the same thing is there, but you won't be doing it. You will be doing the direct exam. That is the only one part of exam, only 8 papers only. Only that exam has to be, you have to pass it. There is no choice. Then only you will be given a chartered accountant of, that is again a province to province, like our Mumbai and then Maharashtra, Andhra, Karnataka, like that. Here also provinces are there. Each province gives the CA designation. That is one thing. Only then you can practice. Even though we are practicing there, you cannot practice in Canada until we qualify. This is about the practicing chartered accountants coming here. And coming to fraud examination, certified fraud examiner, that is the best thing. And certified internal auditor also. That is a universal qualification. And you can practice anywhere. That is a plus point. I can now come and practice in India. Or as long as I am having a good professional standing and everything, I can do the practice basically. And in order to complete the exam or the certified fraud examiner, you have to have an experience, because initially they used to have a rating about that as a fresh student getting into the ACFE exam, and it will be a longer course because they have to qualify. Whereas an experienced person, it is easy because during a practice you would have done some investigations and all, and you will be getting a rating of 70% to 80%. Minimum it is 70% you have to get. Then you are eligible to appear for the exam. It's all online exam only. So there are some institutes they are conducting also. You can do that one, and that is an interesting profession. And another thing is getting into practice. I mean, getting into doing the practice here or getting into the job opportunity. Fraud examiner, it is definitely there. With the Big Four, you can join. There are forensic units. Similarly, as we saw that TD Bank and all big banks, they have fraud alert units are there. They can join definitely.
That's it, sir. Questions. Sir, that was a very session we had.
Thank you.
It is very timely session because risk management. It is now recently few cases are CID officers have visited our Bangalore branch recently for the one or the other reason. They are asking, sir, give me the panel of the forensic auditors, chartered accountant qualified. So now the importance of the chartered accountants and those who are in this forensic audit is very, very important. In that moment, I feel proud that yes, there is a chance for the chartered accountants beyond
definitely
investigating. Through the documentation, definitely we have a scope, and internationally we have Indian chartered accountants have a very big role. So, sir, you have addressed the topic very well. And
in fact, for Indian chartered accountants in India itself is a huge opportunity. Abroad also definitely there is an opportunity because we go through. That's what I used to say. Indian chartered accountants, when they come here also, they'll be shining it very well because we have gone through the whole exercise completely there. So definitely abroad, our guys will do an excellent job. Definitely.
Great. is for our chartered accountants. Make note that, and they can take right path and right advice. They can push globally. So the today's session is very helpful for the all our members, sir. So on
Thank
behalf
you.
of managing committee members of Bangalore branch, I wholeheartedly thank you for sparing your valuable time from the Canada. Dear members, tomorrow we are having session on US taxation overview and opportunities for chartered accountants by CA Varun Nirmal. And today's topic and tomorrow topic is entirely different, and it is a gateway for the how the chartered accountants can look for the opportunities. Always there is opportunities, only connectivity is lacking. We as a Bangalore branch, we are trying through our Dhyana Dasova. We wanted to connect more members across global to the our Bangalore branch members. So ultimately our Dhyana Dasova, the effectively serve for the members. That is our motto, and whole our managing committee is working towards the path of the even this corona, taking challenges, turning challenges into opportunities. So that note, once again, I thank CA V.S. Kumar sir for on behalf of all our members. So I request our Bangalore branch secretary C.A. Srinivas T to formally render the vote of thanks to the today's speaker and all our esteemed viewers. Over to Srinivas.
Thank you, sir. Kumar sir, it was an excellent session, sharing your valuable knowledge and having a rich experience of 20 years
you.
in certified as a certified fraud examiner. Really, it was a value addition today. I thank on behalf of Bangalore branch of ICA and all the members from Bangalore for sharing your knowledge, time and effort, sir. Thank you, sir. And I also
Thank you very much. I really appreciate.
Thank you, sir. I also thank all the members and viewers, those who are actively participate. I think more than 350, nearly 400 members are on live for actively participating in this program. I thank on behalf of Bangalore branch of ICA to all the members and viewers. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
members, I request one more announcement. The V.S. Kumar sir, I have not met also. The one mail has came, even I have not seen the profile, sir. Immediately I told, yes, this is a topic he wanted to share his knowledge. So immediately we make out the chart. So definitely our members, I hope everyone got, and we wish her once this corona is run away. After that, we had definitely the physical session from our side. We are ready to receive into the Bangalore.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank
all the viewers. Thank you. And you can always reach me in the email for offline. Any queries and clarifications, definitely I'm open. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.